Hello everybody, welcome back to the Stacey West preview show. I'm your host Jake Tong. We're here for another Sky Bet League One preview. This time we're away at Shrewsbury. We've got the SalopianKillie, also known as Martin. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Thanks for inviting us on this evening, Jake. How's it all going?
Yeah, it's not going too badly, mate. Obviously, I can imagine you're on a bit of a high after the last couple of weeks, but obviously you're a Kilmarnock fan as much as a Shrewsbury fan. We just said this about 5 minutes ago. Alan Power is a name that has played for Kilmarnock in recent years, and he's a bit of a cult hero at Lincoln. Before we go on to Shrewsbury, just what are your thoughts on Alan Power as a bloke and as a player?
He's a top guy. He's a top guy. I actually liked one of my tweets over there, actually, funnily enough. I think it was St. Patrick's Day, and I put him and Gary Dicker together. And yeah, basically during Steve Clarke's era, they were the reason why Kilmarnock finished third. I mean, Alan Power, I'll tell you right now, actually, the Ayrshire Derby was last week, and that brings me on to Alan Power because he made his debut in the Ayrshire Derby in the Cup. And I knew of Alan Power because obviously playing in England, with yourselves and that. And I think he come from Forest in the original. But yeah, he had a stinker of a game. Like, I mean, he was rotten. Like, it was terrible. And I thought, what the hell? Every Kilmarnock fan was like, he is rubbish. But since then, it's just like, he was absolutely amazing. And I was gutted when he left in the summer, I'm not going to lie. I was hoping he would stay on, but I've met him a couple of times, and he's a top bloke. He'll say hello to you. He's got time for you, and he still lives in Kilmarnock as well. So even though he's moved down the road, but yeah, as a player, I mean, he just wasn't afraid to put his foot in. You know, he was the heartbeat of that midfield, and at one time, him and Gary Dicker were just unplayable. He was like every opposition fans hated him. He was like the Scott Brown sort of. Everyone hated him. You loved him when he was in your team, and yeah, he just loved the tackle. I'm sure you can emphasise on that. But he was what a player.
I think there was a video that went around on Twitter. He got sent off for St Mirren, didn't he? I think not too long ago, and there was a massive. Yes, it went around Twitter, and we were sort of missing that. But we'll move on to Shrewsbury, Martin. Now, you guys, there's a term the media uses: on the beach. You're not going to go up. You're in no danger of going down. Do you feel that's really a thing, being on the beach? Like, do you think that as many times as the media might say it, do you think that the players will look at it that way?
Of course not. No, I think that's just a myth because. On the outside looking in, depending on like results and that, you look at it and you think, that's probably the case. But even though you would think we're safe, until it's mathematically impossible, you've got to make sure you get the points, and it's always that 50-point target. I think there's more than for Shrewsbury. That it's about pride as well. There's such a good sort of feeling at the moment. And not just that, there's contracts to play for. Players may want to sort of keep playing well just to maybe get a move, or not just out of contract with ourselves. So, and that's not just with us, that's any season. I believe it's a bit of a myth. 9 times out of 10, I think it's an incorrect sort of phrase that, but yeah, it's something that gets thrown about by every fan every time this season. And
a review of the Shrewsbury season so far, it's sort of been, both us and Shrews been away struggling to get above sort of that top, into that top half. We've both sort of been loitering in the mid to, do you know what I mean? The mid to lower mid table. Just how would you assess the season? Obviously, you had that run in the playoffs a couple of years ago. There was the day out at Wembley where obviously we beat you a couple of years ago in the final, which I promised myself I wouldn't try to mention. But yeah, how would you sort of say your season's gone so far? Has it gone to expectation?
It's hard to say really, because I think there's always that ambition as a club. I mean, I always see Shrewsbury and Lincoln as quite similar clubs in terms of, obviously Lincoln is a city, so they've got a slightly bigger fan base, but in terms of like the way I would see Lincoln and Shrewsbury very similar. You may correct me if I'm wrong, but Shrewsbury's ambitions, I would like to think, would be at least 12th and about, in that sort of like between playoffs and 12th. I think like when you look at the teams that are up there at the minute, no disrespect, but for the likes of Accrington and Cheltenham and that are up there, and Cambridge at one point, we should really be looking at that sort of area, especially we've had a bit of a taste of it. A few seasons back, you yourselves, had a similar pretty season. Was it last season?
Yeah, last year, yeah.
Yeah, so, and again, I actually predicted Lincoln would finish 18th this year, funnily enough, because I predicted they'd have a dip like we did. But we're too good to go down. I think this is our 7th consecutive season in League One now. So you would like to think that there comes a point where you want to progress a bit further and just survival. So I would say that the season's not gone how it probably would have planned, but we're sitting in a nice position now where we could still potentially finish 14th, 13th, if we go on this good run that we're on at the minute. So the season is still there to be played for with the games left.
And I know this is sort of off topic, like I said, but you just said you're in your 7th year in League One now. Is this the strongest you've seen League One, given the spending power and the amount of teams at the top that are just so far apart from clubs like Lincoln and Shrewsbury?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I think you've got to look at it, and probably on hindsight, you look at the clubs you're talking. Sheffield. I mean, I remember when I was growing up and watching the Premier League, and all these teams were on match of the day, and now they're playing against your team. So, I would definitely say it's definitely probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest. But that doesn't guarantee that all them teams are going to be up there come the end of the season. I mean, look at Charlton, how they've struggled this season. I would class them as a decent enough side. I mean, teams have gone below League One as well and then come back up like Bolton and Portsmouth. So, it's a fun league to be in. And if you can beat the big teams, then great. I mean, our problem is we do well against the big teams. And that's not just this season, even in previous couple of seasons before that. Our problem is, getting the results against teams in and around us, and that's why we are where we are. Yeah.
Let's talk on to the manager then, Steve Cottrell. Obviously came in, the sort of early part of last season, or the early part of last season, wasn't it? What a run that Steve Cottrell has been on in terms of Shrewsbury. I remember you guys coming to our place and beating us last year by goal to nil. I think it was Sean Wally with a goal. Are you a big fan of Steve Cottrell? Is there much confidence that he's the man that can take you forward and perhaps do what Paul Hurst did and take you to the playoffs quite surprisingly?
Yeah, interesting topic, interesting question. Steve Cottrell, let's not talk about this season first. Let's talk about Steve Cottrell from last season. So he came in, I mean, the job he did between those sort of 6 weeks up until Christmas, up until New Year, was phenomenal. I've had this conversation with a Doncaster fan. So like you said, there was yourself, Doncaster, and Hull City, if I'm right in saying. Yeah, to play all of them away. And then Blackpool at home, and we beat all of them for basically the top 3. I think it was apart from Blackpool, but Blackpool was sitting probably just outside the playoffs, but obviously went up in. But the top 3 I mentioned there, they were the top 3 at the time. We beat them 1-0. Was totally out of the blue, but unbelievable from Cottrell the way he turned it around, got us playing defence. We sort of hit on the counter and it worked, and we were. We seem to have had a good defensive unit since he's come in, really. So it was phenomenal. So, but then he took ill. So So it's hard to really judge then. But the work he did do when he was in hospital, getting in contact with staff. Yeah, it was tough as a Shrewsbury fan to watch. Obviously, it was a pandemic, so you couldn't go to games. Being in exile, it was obviously, that's sort of used to that. But even just watching, it was just weird, But I mean, Aaron Wilbraham, did really well, linking in with him in hospital, and yeah, it was tough to watch him go through that. And it was great when he came out of it. So yeah, it was good. But then he's come in this season. He's back to sort of fitness. He's in the dugout doing his normal job. Results haven't started going the way, and it's hard. You feel like you can't criticise him because of what he's gone through, if you know what I mean. So it's a real sort of harsh reality check. But then he was coming out in the press in his bullish way, and just not signing players, the squad's not big enough, promising we'll get people in. Yeah, just things wasn't right. But I think the problem with Cottrell is when the results are going well, it's all right. But when results are going bad, it can be really horrible to watch. And Steve Cottrell doesn't really have that connection sometimes that I feel that maybe other managers have. So I'm a bit on the fence with Cottrell, to be fair, if I'm honest. But as long as he's getting the results, I mean, you can't really complain too much. If he was to get the results, but it was to carry on with the way he is in the media, then I wouldn't really care less. But I suppose it's what you want from your manager and your team. Really, it's a hard one, but the fan base is split, I would say, with Cottrell. Is a fair assumption.
Do you think Shrewsbury as a club are going to stick or twist in the summer? Are they going to sort of stay with Cottrell, even though they know that perhaps what he's like with the media and he's not got that connection with the fans? Or do you feel like they might freshen it up? I remember them doing so with Sam Ricketts. That was an experiment, obviously, that didn't go too well. Are we expecting a managerial change in Shropshire at all?
No, if I'm honest, I'm not. He's done the job. He's come in. He's kept us off. There has been signs of improvement, and don't get me wrong. There's not, mentioned probably probably coming across there as he's been quite negative this season. But on the flip side of it, Daniel Udo was a player that was going nowhere, which we'll obviously touch on to, I'm sure, in a moment. And he gave him a 2-year contract, and fans were like, what's happened here? Why are we giving him a 2-year contract? I mean, for me, I was glad he stayed, but even a 2-year contract was quite a surprise. So you then look at he brought Sam Cosgrove in on loan, and he didn't perform. So his loan signings have been pretty poor, but I think he doesn't like a loan signing. Yet permanent signings, he's nailed every single one of them. I don't think you could, if you asked any Shrewsbury fan, any of the permanent signings that have come in, are any of them a bad signing? They would disagree. There'd be no one they could say that he was a bad signing. So he's very particular in his signings and his methods, and he likes to take control of everything. So on that side of things, he's brought in some good players and improved the side, and I definitely would say the side is a lot better than it was in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, up until that playoff game, that playoff season.
Yeah. Obviously, you guys went to Rotherham on the weekend, came out handsome victors. Just tell us how, because we were there the Tuesday before. We got nowhere near them for an hour or so. Just talk us through, because that was the result of the day where you're going, really? Do you know what I mean? No disrespect to Shrewsbury, but how good Rotherham United are. But you guys completely played them off the park. Probably helped with a bit of a dubious red card for McDonald, but still, you guys were 1-0 up at that point anyway. So what was that like for you guys?
Yeah, we were valued for our lead, like you say, at 1-0, and yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't go, but I watched the game back, and it was just, if I talk about the game in a moment, but I'll talk about the games building up to that. So this season, as I mentioned already, we've been defensively a solid unit, and we've got a real good sort of formation going. We've got the 3rd best defence in the league. ahead of, and I think it's just Wigan and Rotherham. We've got the better defences. So take the top two out of the league, we've got the best defence in the league. So that says a lot about how we're looking to base ourselves on. The problem is we've not been probably as attacking. We've not had that number 10. But now we've sort of got to a point where we've got a great side playing week in, week out, and the chances are just falling for us. You know, it seems to click too late in the season, but it's good to have a base built on for next season. So young Fauna that's come in, he's like a young Patrick Vieira, fantastic on loan from Forest at the minute. I mean, if you watch him play, he just dictates that middle. Unbelievable, energetic in the middle, and he's been the sort of player that's really improved in the last few games. But yeah, we've created chance after chance. I think up until the Morecambe game there, we had something like 50 shots in 3 games, only 7 on targets. That tells you a story in itself. Or was it 9 on target? I think it was like 7%, you know, conversion on target. So it was, I don't know if that's a bit of confidence, poor finishing, and obviously the odd good save as well. But then that Morecambe game, I think, gave, even no disrespect to Morecambe, but it gave Shrewsbury the confidence once they got the 2 or 3 goals that we can really play our stuff, and you could see the confidence in that game. So going into the Rotherham game, you're sort of on a high. You got the early goal, so it was like, it was just that confidence thing, I think, going into it really more than anything. And we just played how we played in previous games, and I think Rotherham just couldn't cope with the pace and the drive in the middle from Fauna and the sort of out wide in the flanks. I think they sort of were shocked, but they shouldn't have been shocked, because we played them about 2 weeks before at our place, drew 0-0, and if anyone watched that game, ask any Rotherham fan, second half we absolutely dominated that game to the point where I don't know how we didn't win it. And you know, Rotherham dictated that first half, had 10 shots on goal but 1 on target, so they didn't really trouble us really. So I think that game, if we had played that game early on in the season, you know, the Saturday game may have not been, but I think it gave the players a confidence that 1, they can score goals, they can play, but 2, they remember that it's fresh in their heads. They've played Rotherham and they dominated that game the other week. So it's like, you know, I think it was just a confidence thing. Yes, the 10 men helped, but you always know what it's like when you go with 10 men. It doesn't always mean you've got that advantage. I'm sure you played Wimbledon away the other week, and I think you had 10 men, but you got a point. So you know, it doesn't always take advantage with the extra man, but we certainly took the advantage, and it was a great away performance.
Yeah, I think 2 clean sheets against Rotherham United is pretty good going this season based on their front line. Now, you mentioned him earlier. Daniel Udo is a player that I've sort of marked down as a key man. I also wrote down Luke Leahy, because he was a really good signing, because he came in early in the window as well. And then Morosi, the goalkeeper that was at Coventry, he obviously a really good signing. Because on paper, it looked like you were building a really good squad in the summer, but Daniel Udo is the man, isn't he, that's pulled forward of everybody else. Just tell us a little bit about him and his playing style. And are you slightly worried that you guys might lose out on him in the summer in case one of the top big boys come in for him?
Yeah, I'll answer that. So yeah, you're always worried when a Shrewsbury player does well, because Shrewsbury's not a big club, you know, compared to the other teams in the league. But we've got him still for another year. He's only just had a kid now as well. He's quite settled. He's got a very, very, very strong connection with the fans. He's not one of those ones where you have a strong connection with the fans and then he'll jump ship. You can tell there's an honest connection there. So if he does go, I think it'll be on good terms anyway, but I don't think he would go in the summer. I think he will see out his contract at least, unless a ridiculous offer came in that we couldn't turn down. It's not like the old better situation where he went to Swansea, because that was a big loss, but he sort of expected that, whereas Udo, to be honest, I don't know, I think he's in a comfortable situation at Shrewsbury. He's got a good connection with Aaron Wilbraham. I think he's really helped him. So no, I don't think I'm too concerned about that. But football doesn't surprise me. So, you know, always expect the unexpected is what I would say as well. You can wake up in the morning and read some news and you're like, oh no, didn't expect that to happen. But yeah, so that's that. But Udo, so for Lincoln fans to expect, I mean, before this season, he's still got it now, is he'll basically, if you're a centre-back, he's your worst nightmare because he will just chase you down until you cannot run anymore. He'll run and run and run. He's just great. He'll run the channels. He'll get the ball. Sometimes he'll get the ball, run at the ball, lose it, but he'll still chase back. You know, he doesn't give up. He's a fighter. And the one thing I've noticed about him this year is his strength. He's built his upper body strength is a bit stronger. And Cottrell's actually said the other week that he used to aim for the corners when he came in, whereas now he gets the ball. If there's an opportunity, he'll use his power and shoot. And just, I mean, I don't know if you remember the cup game against us earlier this season where he got a double.
Yeah.
Those two strikes were just out the edge of the box, was just by sheer power. And, you know, it wasn't. You sometimes look and think, oh, that was a bit of luck, but he's done that time and time again this season. The ball will hit the ground, and it's like a goal scoring instinct all of a sudden that he's found, where he just sort of knows where the goal is, whereas before he'd take an extra touch. So yeah, I mean, if a ball's bouncing around in the box and Udo's about, or even outside the box, you've got to close him down because he will get a shot away and he will work the keeper if he gets it on target. I mean, the goal against Morecambe, for me, it was just one of the best he scored this season because he just got the ball. He ran from like the halfway line, chased onto the ball, beat the defender, swiveled him, and then just in the box, didn't even look and think. He just hit it top corner, gave the keeper no chance. And if you're like watching that in the Premier League, you're talking about that as a great goal on Sky Sports News for the next few days. You know, it was a great goal, and it's just his power and his strength is his two main attributes, and that's something that Lincoln will need to watch out for.
Yeah, I can see by the smile in your face how happy you are that he's still at your football club. I'll take you back then. You alluded to the cup game, which I was trying to avoid because we bottled a lead, didn't we? And you guys beat us on pens. The league game at Central Bank ended 1-1. I think it was Luke Leahy scored a header for you guys. I think we had gone 1-0 up. Is there much you can remember from that game, and what were your thoughts sort of on Lincoln? And did you sort of see that as a good point at the time? Because I can remember it was the weekend of Halloween, wasn't it? So it's a fair while ago.
Yeah, I thought it was. I don't think neither team deserved to win. I think a draw was a spot-on result. I think Lincoln dominated spells of the game. We came into it, got the goal. But then by the end of it, I mean, either team could have won it. I remember Morosi pulled off a couple of good saves in the last sort of 5 minutes as well. So it could have gone either way, and if either team had won it, it'd have been harsh on either team, really. So, draw was a fair result. And at that time, I think you were higher up the table, if I remember. I'm not sure, I can't remember now, but it was perceived as a good result because it was away, and Lincoln's always a hard place to go to. I've been there twice myself in the past. And yeah, I've had a couple of good away days at Lincoln. One was a 4-0 win on the opening day of the season, if I remember.
We don't talk about that.
You know what? I was quite a surprise, that one, because you had some good you had a good team there, like Lee Frecklington, I think, when he was in his first spell with you. Was a good player. But yeah, no, that was the 1-1 draw was a fair result. Don't know what you thought on that.
Yeah, it was. It's not one of the games that spring out to live in memory. Obviously, we've had a lot of big home games against Wednesday and Sunderland sort of since, where the atmosphere has probably been a little bit better, and the games have a bit more significance. Obviously, you've told me earlier you predicted Lincoln to come 18th this season. I wanted to go back to that and sort of. I normally ask supporters, are they surprised to see Lincoln as low down on the table as what they are? But you clearly aren't. You sort of saw this coming. Is it something that you dealt with at Shrewsbury once you got into the playoffs and lost that final, and then you guys had a bit of a hangover the year after?
Yeah, that's basically it. I don't think Lincoln. I didn't think Lincoln were going to get relegated, but I didn't think Lincoln would be able to keep the momentum like they did the year before. But I do feel as though I've said this because I actually got asked some questions from another Lincoln fan, which I responded to, and I did say that, like I already alluded to, Lincoln and Shrewsbury are very similar sides. I feel as though they're both like community-based clubs. They've got good fan bases. Obviously, you've got a slightly larger fan base because of you've been a city. But in terms of the clubs in general, the way they've come from, like they've spent, obviously they got relegated to the conference, been in League Two for a while, got promoted, sort of now finding their way in League One like we did, and sort of sustained that. And had that chance in the playoffs. So I feel they're quite similar sides, and we've got good potential to have that aspirations of Championship football. So yeah, just the prediction really was just to get a case of a hangover. But I do feel as though ourselves and even you would probably be a lot stronger next season. I don't feel as though Lincoln are ever going to be a side around the relegation side. They always bring in good players on loan as well, a bit similar to like we do. You had players from Nottingham Forest, and obviously you've got Midlands there where you can bring in good players. We've had the same as well, where we've brought some really good players in on loan and have gone on to do better things. So yeah, I do see us as very similar clubs. It's funny, my dad was in the RAF, right? So at the time I was sort of moving around a lot. So I moved to Shropshire when I was just after I was 10. So that's when I first started supporting them. And I hadn't really sort of got a team at that point. And I lived in Lincoln for a year. And if it wasn't for my dad getting posted, I was going to be going to he said he would take me to watch Lincoln. So it's crazy how we're speaking now, but I could have easily been a Lincoln fan. If my dad hadn't got posted to Shropshire, so I could have been an imp.
There's still time yet, Martin. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at our squad. Are there any sort of players that you've earmarked as a bit of a threat for Shrewsbury on Saturday? The
one I liked, but I don't think he's been playing recently, or he didn't play against Sunderland, was that Scully. I see him as a good number, sort of. I don't know how you would describe him, but I would see him as a sort of player that likes to play in behind the strikers, sometimes out wide. Bit of a sort of number 10, a free role. Something that we've sort of missed this season, really. So I quite like him. He's a good player.
John Marquis? Would you take John Marquis?
He's one of them where he's got a great record and that, but I don't know. I feel as though we've got some. He's probably not going to improve our front line because Bowman's got a good experienced striker. Udo, as we've talked about already, and then we've got Bloxham, who's quite a good young player coming through the ranks as well. So, yeah, I would probably. Don't get me wrong, if he was given to us for nothing, I'd take him, but he's not one I would shout out for. But he is a danger, though, to be fair. He has had a good goal threat in League One, so yeah, he's probably someone to watch out, I guess.
And finally, Martin, if I could get a score prediction, how are you confident going into Saturday's game? Obviously, you scored 8 goals in 2. We've scored 1 in 2. So this probably has a 0-0 ball fest written all over it from our perspective.
Yeah, funnily enough, before the end of December, we hadn't drawn a 0-0, and then I think we've drawn 6 since then. So, it could easily be 0-0, but I just feel the confidence is flowing at the minute, and Lincoln's a winnable game. The only concern I've got, and you know what, I did this prediction with the other fan, but I just remembered that our defensive unit is going to be broken up because we've got Tom Flanagan on international duty with Northern Ireland, and Aaron Pierre, who would come in and replace him, is on international duty with Granada. So it sort of changes the balance on how our play is going to be, because Nurse started off the season at centre-back and would have played there against you in the away game. So he will probably slot in at left centre-back alongside Ebanks, Landell and Pennington, which gives that interesting situation of who's going to play on the left. Will he switch it around? Will he give the new young boy on loan? I don't know. So I did say 2-1 to Salop, so I'm still going to stick by that. I do think we will concede. I'm going to go for 2-1. I'm going to stick on that. But,
well, thank you for coming on, Martin. Obviously, I know you do a podcast as well, so here is your opportunity to plug away and where Lincoln fans can get your views of the game as well.
Yeah, so I'll be putting up mine tomorrow with me and Rob. It's 2 clubs, 1 love, the Killie Shrew view. So I'll be talking about the recent 2 games there, and also previewing the Lincoln game as well. So if you want to give it a listen, follow the SalopianKillie on Twitter, and the links will be on there for Spotify, the usual. I'll be on there for you. So thanks for having me. If you want to come on any time as well, there, Jake, onto mine, chat about the game. Even if you want to come on next week at some point and chat about the game, feel free. If not, next season, hopefully.
Sounds good, mate. Sounds good. Thank you for coming on. I know it was so late in the day, and you're such a hero for coming on, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll be back next week for another preview. Thank you for watching.